Good morning, everybody. The suspense is here, of course, an introduction to, wait for it, ta-da! Transcreation. I have never done a PowerPoint presentation for like a group like this, so I thought, okay, I'm going to play with all these effects. So yesterday was a big panic because I didn't know how to upload it, and then of course Xenia said, oh, we'll do it in the morning, and then she was late, so I hadn't seen it, and I was still not knowing of everything was there. So it's a creative PowerPoint presentation. So an introduction to Transcreation, and we're going to talk about what it is, and then when it is used, and how it works, and then how we can apply it to our translations. Because the game is actually very, it's very useful in the game translation as it is, because it's fun. It has, of course, different languages, but you can play with word plays and rhymes and so on. So it will be very useful once you get the hang of it. So we've all probably been translating from scratch, you know, very straightforward. And as the master brain says here, translation is the communication of the meaning of source language by means of an equivalent target language. So we've always been looking at the target, or at the source text, and then you think, okay, just go from one word to the other and you translate. Very simple. And it's mainly used if you translate terms and conditions, help files, manuals. I'm sure you're all experienced in that. So there's not much choice. This is it, and it has to be turned into your own language. And it's pretty much straightforward. But what now is transcreation? It's kind of a very modern word, but the word is actually, that you already see, it aims to provide a creative translation, which you can't use in terms and conditions or manuals. You know, it won't be so, well, won't be accepted or approved of, I'd say. But the idea is to be very creative in your translation. Try to say it a bit in a different way. So transcreation is basically used in marketing text or advertisements. You know, marketing websites, for instance, you can apply transcreation because you can just be a bit more creative about your message that you want to get across and change maybe the source a bit to be useful for your target audience. So you can be a bit more flexible, and creative, you know, can be used both. Now, I've tried very hard to find a nicer ad, but I thought, okay, we're Dutch, so we're going to do it the Dutch way. So it's amazing, it's actually quite a modern ad, you wouldn't believe it, but this is really the way, you know, in tradition, farmers would look like, you know, the overalls and the little cap. Unfortunately, you can't see the clogs. But he is actually selling organic food. And the caption of the ad is, eerlijk is heerlijk. Very short, and it rhymes, so that's nice. Now, of course, you don't know what it means, but it means honest is delicious. But if you see the ad, eerlijk is heerlijk, it's short, it rhymes, but it also is a little wordplay, because we have an expression in Dutch that says, eerlijk is eerlijk, without the H. So it would be fair is fair. You know, honest is honest, fair is fair. So there is a lot going on in these three little words. So if you would get the assignment, okay, we're going to sell this in Spain, we're going to sell it in Italy, or wherever, how are you going to approach this? Because you can say, okay, eerlijk is heerlijk, honest is delicious. So it's a typically Dutch brand, typically Dutch food. It's about organic, so you have to think of honest food. You have to think of how to use that in your language, honest, organic, wholesome, traditional, quality. All these words have to somehow get in. But honest is delicious. That wouldn't really be an ad like that. So, I don't know. How would you, what, in English, do we have any suggestions? Quickly, if we look at the wonderful ad, and if you look at the picture, not so inviting, but honest is delicious. Well, I could only come up with our food is good. But I'm sure, it's just an idea of trying to be, it's short. You say our food because it's a typical Dutch brand. So you want to make it sure that people understand it's ours and it's good food. But I mean, I'm sure we can think of more things. Once it's time consuming, but once you start getting the idea of it, you could try maybe something like honest to goodness or something like that. You have to try and play, and it's time consuming, but so that's, it's a little, so again, you have to be creative, and it will take time to think of something that you could do with the words, and advertising, of course, is much more difficult to find something really, really apt. The word is creative. So you think about the source text, because that's the starting point. So you read what the source is. You think about it. And normally we would just translate it as it is. But the idea is actually to think of a different way of translating it. So we're not going from left to right, or if you're in another country, from right to left. You're just thinking, okay, this is one way of saying it. Maybe I can toss the words around, maybe I say it in a different way. And then again, you can say, well, maybe I can say it in a different way again. So that's a process. And you change the target text significantly in the process. And in the end, you come up with something completely different, saying the same meaning, and you forget about the source text. Doesn't matter. You have started the process, you already know what you want to say in your text, but because you are creative about it, you can come up with a completely different text, but it still says the same. Okay? It's a process that you will have to learn, and you have to be kind of daring. Because normally it's quite nice if you translate, and you have the text there, and you go from one word to another, yeah, have it all covered, next. Now you have to let go of it and think, okay, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to own this text, I'm going to give it my style or whatever. So transcreation is best defined as a complete adaptation of a product or an advertising message for a target market. So you can actually do with it whatever you want. If it's funny or serious, doesn't really matter, you just change it. And as long as the source is still there, but in the process of changing it. So I think with the Playrix games, we can use it big time. It could be, I think that's the fun about it, because it's conversation very often. So you're typing away, you can imagine this conversation going on, and we can actually use it. So as game translators, there's nothing more rewarding than making the players happy thanks to a good and creative translation. Because, we already get it translated from Russian to English, and then we all use it again in our languages. So I'm sure there will be things different in different cultures and so on. So there's a lot that we can do, but the end game is still that we are all going to be happy with the game and we understand everything. So here is Austin. Very beginning of the game, the garden is still, of course, in a mess. And he says, well, I'm sure that together we'll return the garden to its former glory. That's the text. So you get the text, and what are we going to do about it? we're thinking, okay, I can just translate it like the way it is. But I can also maybe change it slightly, as long as I have certain words still in there. So I could do together. We'll get this garden back in tip-top shape, no doubt about it. So you'll have the garden back in tip-top shape, former glory. You have the together, you have the sure, no doubt about it. That's a different way to saying it. And it would still be the same way of the same message. We could do, sure, we'll get this garden flourishing again. Let's do it together. That's still the same. So it's just a mindset of way. So who wants to have a go?
Let's restore the garden.
Yeah. Together? Yeah. Let's restore the garden. Come on, we'll do it together or something. Yeah. Somebody else? I know, I love that part.
Mine was like when there is a character limit, like very strict.
Yeah, I know. We'll come to that later. But it's the whole idea of letting go of the straight following of the source into, we can say it in a different way, it doesn't matter. And that's, I think, something we just have to learn. You can't just do it in one go, because in the beginning you think, can I do this? But you can, because the message is still there. That's the whole idea of it. The translation in the end, that's the whole point still, has to sound natural in your own language. But because you are transcreating, you can make sure of that. Because sometimes when you follow the English source to the letter, it doesn't really sound that nice. And certainly I find in Dutch, for instance, the word order is different, and I'm sure in other languages too, and you think, oh, it doesn't really sound nice. But some people, because they are translating so often, they are just used to the English, and they don't see the Dutch as such anymore as the target, and they forget it doesn't really sound natural anymore, it reads properly. So in a way, the transcreation will help, because you can just make it your own and you can get it back into your own native language and make sure it is fantastic. I don't know what is... there is something here. So when you are transcreating, we can't just do whatever we want. We still have, certainly with the game as well, we have to think of the brand personality, the tone of voice. So the tone of voice, of course, is also within the game that the different characters have their different expressions. So Raoul is still doing the Spanish things. And so you have to take all that into account. We have to, I think that's an important thing, the glossaries, because there are certain items in homescapes, in gardenscapes, in fishdom and in township that will come back again and again. So you have to stick to the glossaries. I don't think there are glossaries yet, or so. It would be nice if we could work to that we will get a style guide in which we have the tone of voice, the brand personality and glossaries, and we also know the target audience identity, that we really specifically know what to aim for and how to make sure that the text that we are translating, is still proper and right. And then, of course, the style and tone, we have to, because even in the translations we do in MemoQ, sometimes it's nothing to do with the game. Well, it is to do with the game, but it might be an explanation about an event. Well, I think that has to be clear. You can't really, you could be creative, but I mean, still, the reader will have to know the rules and regulations about the event. So in that case, the style and tone has to be very clear. It has to be very simple. People have to understand what it means that you're translating. Whereas if you have a conversation in the garden or in homescapes, it's different. So it has to be very clear when you use that creative, that transcreation, and when you can use your creative translations, and when you have to be a bit more careful about that. So I was just trying yesterday to find an example, For some reason, it all became green, but I don't know why. But in this, I got a lovely job from Marina yesterday. Thank you very much, to do for Friday. And I was sort of thinking, I'm trying to find something in which you can see, in this case, you see the word treasure used in 3 occasions. And so I had a book about 2 friends trying to find treasure when I was a kid. So they had lots of adventures and overcame challenges together. In the end, they realized their friendship was the real treasure. And then he says to the dog, "You're my little treasure." So treasure is used here in 3 different meanings. Now in English, it works. You can use treasure 3 times. Now I was discussing it with Maaike yesterday, and in Dutch we can use it in the first sentence and we can use it in the last sentence, but you can't use it for the middle sentence. So that's a challenge. So I don't know whether the Russian original, if
It would be similar to Dutch, I think. No, but in the first and in the third, it would fit.
it would fit.
And then in the second one, I would say that it carries high value, something like that.
Yes, exactly. We have the same. We say it's very valuable, our friendship. But a treasure can be valuable. So in a way, you could maybe translate it that you could use valuable with treasure. So that valuable would be the word, and I value your friendship or something. But that's probably different for every language. I don't know. Is there a language that would use treasure 3 times?
Yeah, in Spanish it would.
It would work.
Would have to be careful though, because Gollum in Lord of the Rings, when he says "my precious" in English, he says "mi tesoro" in
Okay.
Spanish. So that could actually have a weird connotation, because you don't want to sound like Gollum either.
Oh, right. Yes.
Dog. Oh,
Yes, you're much.
That could be.
Okay. So it's just interesting that, it works in English, but it doesn't work in every language. So that's where you can be creative in trying to see, how do I fit in the treasure bit into all the different sentences. So you'll probably come across this, and you might actually do it naturally while working on these translations, that you are trying to put it in there, that you're trying to find good words to fit it in. So it's difficult to explain, because I have to give you examples in English and we have to find other examples in the same language. But if you would be working together on text in your language, you can discuss it and then you can come up with lots more examples and you can try it out. So it's all I can say is happy transcreation in the end. But I hope it has given you some idea of what you can do with it. And I hope you'll have fun with it. So I don't know if there's any questions after this.
Other.
Okay, yeah, I have a question.
Oh.
So basically my question is about, like, when you have so many different, like, variants which are all nice, how do you end up choosing, like, one? Like, what helps you? I mean, of course it depends, like, on your own taste as a person, as a writer, as a translator. Like, but still, like, I know that you should, like, every translator has to develop this kind of skill, this kind of...
Yeah. It doesn't come just in one go. Yeah.
Intuition, like, what is best, but then, like, very often it's very, very personal.
Yes.
Yeah, like, how to make... Because sometimes what I come across is, like, especially, like, with marketing text, you produce, like, several variants, and they're like, but we need one. And I'm like, but you choose. But they're like, but you know English better, you choose. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yes, but I mean, that is from Russian to English.
Yeah.
And then in your own language, you in the end, if you have to produce the translation,
I'm even worse with Russian.
Sorry?
I'm even worse with Russian. I don't translate into Russian. I cannot.
You translate into English.
I can't write in Russian.
Well, you translate into English,
Yeah.
right? So then you decide. So
Yeah.
that's it. You have to dare to decide. You have to make the decisions. And it is
Yeah.
really something that you have to say, well, listen, I'm going to do this. And that takes time. It takes guts. It's one of those things, you can only do it if you are experienced in translating and you say, well, I'm going to let go of the ordinary,
It's gonna be my way.
straightforward rule from I'm going from one word to another. I'm just saying, okay, I'm going to twist the sentence around. I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do it my way. So you just have to, you have to feel like, yes, I'm going to do this. That your decision. So you have to feel strong about it.
Yeah,
You have to
no.
feel. You have to feel secure about yourself in that sense, in a way.
Yeah.
It's just we
That
have-
makes sense.
We
Yeah.
have a bigger team, I think, that when we deal with Russian into English translation, we have more people. And when we start discussing things, right?
Yeah.
Oleg? We start discussing things, everybody has
Their own opinion.
with
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
person. So if you work in sales, for example,
That's nice. Yeah, it helps.
but we have more people. One
Yeah.
person says, well, I prefer that. I was like, no.
And then comes Alec, and he's like, whatever, it's gonna be my way. And everyone is
My
like,
way or
"Shut
no
up."
way. Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe if you work in a team like that, you have to be maybe a bit more open-minded about other
That's what
people's
we are. That's what we are now.
feeling
Like,
about
whatever.
things. Yeah. No, you say, okay, this time, we'll go your way or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I like whatever, like everything you are saying makes sense, and I kind of know it. But it's just like
It's the practice. How do you? Yeah.
It's nice like to share the pain and the challenges, and like to get some feedback and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reassurance, like
Yeah.
And does it work? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever have situations when you're translating something tricky and you come up with some variants and you are still not satisfied, but you just can't
Yeah.
come up with something
And that's
better?
the problem.
What do you do in
yeah,
such
the problem in a way with often with translations is you don't just have time. I mean, they don't give you a whole week to think about something. That's why the ad is nice to show, but that is very time consuming and it has such an impact on marketing. So that's big. But I mean, the translations we do, that you have time, but not always. But you probably all recognize the idea of when there is an expression used in English and you're trying to find something to say in your language that would fit in as an expression as well. That doesn't always work. And I do have those moments that you're walking around and your mind is still there. You're still thinking about, it's kind of niggling in the back of your head. I have to find a solution, So you're doing your thing and then suddenly you might have this, aha, and now I have this. I have the solution for it. But it doesn't always work. You just have to give in. You say, I have no time. I have no time. But I'd say it's probably also practice. And if you, in your language, if you work with two, not everybody does, but if you do work with two, you can bounce off ideas.
Yeah, actually, in my experience, what I already came to is that I can now, in advance, estimate how much time I'm going to spend on finding a nice solution. And
Yes.
consider, okay, it's not worth it, and let it go. Like, from the very beginning, kind of, you
Yes.
can feel if it's worth it or not. Like,
Yes.
I don't know, somehow.
And there's also, sometimes you get a conversation and it's so funny. And so you will be uplifted by it. And you say, I go with it. I go with the flow. And like a picnic or whatever. I'm working on gardenscapes, obviously. So I'm always in the garden and everything is, the birds are singing and everything is wonderful. So it's easier. I don't know about homescapes, but it depends on the subject that you get. It depends on, the storyline. And but then, of course, with the items, for instance, how do you transcreate that? So then you get more into what Mike is going to do more about culturalization. You have to adapt it then. So there are parts in the translation where you can use it, and there are other parts where it's not so usable. And then it's time. Do you have the time to do it? It's all these questions here. The Inquisition bench. The Russians.
Have you got examples, maybe not necessarily from game industry, but examples that really inspired you? Or, you know, when you're trying to apply these principles in games, you're like, oh, I remember that really cool. I mean, we're all a little bit geeky, right? Like, oh, I remember that really cool sentence that, you know, was transcreated in Dutch, and it keeps me going. You know what I mean? Have you got those inspiring examples that you read somewhere, or I don't know?
Yeah, but the problem is, you see, if I would give you those examples in Dutch, you don't understand it. So that's the problem with the presentation, you know, that sometimes you feel like you found something really interesting, or you found something really wonderful, but it's so hard to explain how wonderful it is if you don't speak the language. So that even with the advertisement, I did put it in, but it is so difficult to show that there are so many aspects in a short sentence like that. So I could tell you how wonderful I have been, but no. But you know, sometimes you do find something funny, or sometimes I get a message from Mike. The first time she was proofreading my text, she would say, "Ha ha ha! I like this. I like that." You know, when you have these, for instance, there was in Gardenscapes there was some kind of brochure, and Austin could buy one of those blowers in the garden, you know, with the leaf blower. I don't know what it was. So, and they all had funny names, and then we had to think of something. So I don't know what I came up with, but anyway, I got a very good reaction. So I thought, okay, that's fine. And so that's something where you can have fun. But I mean, it also depends on your mood. I mean, one day you get up and you feel wonderful, and other days, if you've had a wonderful dinner party and dancing and vodka, you know, you don't feel so. I was looking yesterday at the text, and I was falling asleep, and I thought, this is not good. So I'll check it again today. I'm sure I did translate something, but I'll have to go over it again. Yeah. So these are all factors that come into play as well. You know. Question. The Spanish.
The Spanish. Is it on? Yes. So another point that you're saying actually is that maybe the original text is not necessarily doesn't have a pun, doesn't have a wordplay, or is not funny at all. But then you think of something funny, right?
In your language, yes.
In your language, and it might not be funny. Like I know it happens a lot in The Simpsons, and that there's like this bit that is hilarious in Spanish. And then you listen to the English and you're like, what? There's no joke here.
Yes.
Here. So I think that's really interesting as well, that if you're feeling creative, why not, right?
Yes,
like,
or if it fits in. Yeah. And that's where you have to dare to do that. Mm-hmm. That's something that you say, okay, I'm going to own this now, and I'm going to make sure. In the end, we all want the players of the game to be happy. Mm-hmm. So if you think I can put a joke in here or something, you know, that would fit in, feel free. Yeah. As long as it fits in, you know. And that's another thing I find, that if you read, in the end, if you would just read through your translation and it flows naturally, and I find if you read a lot, you can keep on reading, and it's smooth and it flows, and the moment you suddenly say, oh, what was that? I have to read that again. Then there is an issue. If you have to go over the text again and again, so it's kind of a giveaway. As long as you read in the end and your text is flowing well and it sounds natural and you're happy with it and you can just read on and read on. Okay, you've done it. That's it. Yeah.
Very boring comment.
Oh.
Because I'm reading for college a book about translation in the Middle Ages. And
yeah, okay.
No. But then, like, when scholars, they analyze a translation that was done back in the Middle Ages, they see if the translator was creative and if they took liberty with the text, it means that they are likely experienced and good in what they were doing. if the translation was more literal, it's because maybe they were just starting or they were not.
Yeah, yeah.
They were not like real translators. So it's. So
It's
really
not a
what
boring
you
comment. It's
said-
very interesting,
What you
actually.
said was completely true. Like,
Yeah.
if you are experienced, well, if you are, how can I say that? You have to dare.
You have to
take
dare. That's
leadership.
actually, you have to really have guts. But then the problem is, in a way, the problem is, we still have proofreaders outside, external proofreaders. Here we go again. Well, no. The problem is, in what way would they accept our liberty when they say there is no joke in this? So hang on, we're going to get back to the source. So that's where I think a style guide, glossaries, we have to get a framework to use by everybody working on the games, so that it is very clear that if in a certain language a joke is apt, it fits in, or it doesn't, if there's an English joke but it isn't funny at all in whatever language, that it is allowed to, instead of translating from left to right or from right to left, that you can actually mix. And you can make, instead of one sentence, you can use 3 little sentences if you want to. I think that's what we have to aim for, that we are all on the same wavelength, working towards the same goal, and not saying, oh, hang on, you didn't use that word, and you didn't, oh, my goodness, what's happened here? And it's all being referred back, So it's, I think,
I've had a few.
Yeah, Mike had
I've
an
had a few-
experience. Yeah, it is.
I've had a few issues with that, with the proofreaders before you arrived.
I know.
Enriched our
It's all
team.
going to change.
Yeah, so that's definitely something I would like to work on and see if we can improve that communication, that it comes back to us if they want to make a drastic change, No. I've had it once maybe true that they sent something to Dima, and then he emailed to me, and then I emailed him back to email to them, etc. There doesn't have to be direct communication, but just some communication if they want to make big changes, because that's the thing, you spend time and effort on making this transcreation, or you had the guts to do it, you made the decision to do it, you spend a bit more time than a normal translation, so it's very frustrating sometimes.
But I think it would be nice if you give the example that you worked on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was changed in a very wrong way because I asked you for pictures, but at the party it was like shingly and stuff. So okay, this is gonna be some very fancy term. And when they came back, it was like arcade games. It was like an arcade. Yeah. It's the same name that we use for the arcade. Another one. The video games are. But this is not gonna fit. Like play games.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
My God.
Okay, so they had a dance. They were very fancy,
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes
stage and everything. It's not an arcade.
Well, in Mike's case, I think it was about Olivia baking cakes.
Yeah, it was when Olivia was all hysterical that her cake had failed, and her whole self-appreciation, just her whole life depended on this one cake apparently, which was a bit over the top dramatic. She burnt the cake, and it's like, oh no, I'm a bad woman. I'm a bad housewife. I'm such a bad person to you guys. I don't know how you put up with me. The rest of my life is ruined. See? Told you so.
But you see, Mike changed it because she thought, I can't do this for
I toned it
Dutch.
down a bit
Yeah.
that she was disappointed, but sure, we'll bake another cake and better luck next time, kind of like that. Just disappointment, but not like, oh my God, I failed as a woman. That doesn't go down well with Dutch people.
No, it wouldn't work.
So I changed that, and then they
Yeah.
completely they even gave feedback to Dima saying that I mistranslated it. I was so pissed off. But I stayed professional. I was like, well, the reason I did this is because of that and that and that, and
Yeah.
but they changed it, and Now we have complaints. No, but it's just important to
So
have
that's
communication.
Yeah.
That I actually spent time, like I had the guts to do it. And then I made the decision to do it. And
We did. We softened it. We definitely softened it.
In Russian, it's more harsh for sure.
yeah, it depends on the culture. again, but
Exactly.
still,
That's it's. I think the localization and the culturalization that you're going to talk to about. It all comes together, And for instance, in America, with software, for instance, if you buy a software product, you get on the screen congratulations, and I just said, can you imagine if you buy a product, you get congratulations, and it's everywhere. So once I just got this I was working for Semantic, I said, we're cutting it out altogether. No nonsense. I said, we're not going to do this. Because I said, this is ridiculous. You're not getting a present. It's not your birthday, so just don't do it. Or welcome back if you've been away, or welcome back on your screen. That wouldn't work in Dutch, it's just so outrageous. And all these exclamation marks is another thing.
We're
No
not a very
exclamation
excited
marks
people.
in Dutch. Yeah, don't do that. So and you just have to say, listen, I'm going to say this, no more. So I cut it out. If you in Holland, if you buy an antivirus software from Semantic, there's no congratulations anymore. I'm sorry.
just so you know, Sylvia
Yeah.
and me, we're
Yes.
not typical
No.
Dutch. We are very excitable, but the rest of Dutch
It's
people
very
are
down
a bit
to
like,
earth. Yeah,
That's nice.
it's very Russian
Russians,
actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Nice.
No smiling. Yeah. So, yeah.
There's some money.
Yeah.
We actually adapted those messages for International Women's Day, because in Russian they were like, "Oh, be beautiful and kind."
Ooh. What? That's not the right message.
They were very impressive.
I really liked the Women's Day things, except that it was about like women and different things.
But it's in our culture to be sending people long wishing. Like when you sign a card, I was just telling the girls and guys at breakfast, when you send somebody a birthday card, you don't say have a good one. You write a little poem. I mean, come on, you write.
Yeah.
You sign the card. There is space, in the card, so that it's signed. You need to use it up. And
Yeah.
it's a difference. Yeah, we had to soften it, and yet it wasn't enough, right, Lloyd? You could do with a bit more softening.
I just remembered one example. Can I show you?
Yeah.
Do you share with Mike? Did you have something? No, go ahead, please.
I just remembered one example I had with Township a while ago, when they were launching a new character, the hipster guy. So he sounds kind of like hipster, like he uses these terms. But in Russian, basically, to sound hipster, you can only borrow English words. Like, for example, just like smoothie and I have a. Yeah, we are having a meeting for our startup, and we have a deadline, challenge, and stuff like that. So in Russian it sounds like totally hipster. So in English, of course, it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, in some parts of the sentences, we changed the words, but for some lines I had to come up with totally different messages. There is now There is now a line he says about his Instagram post or something like that. You only live once is also there, only in English. In Russian, it's only deadline, challenges, and stuff like that. It was funny, yeah.
But I mean, that would be something that you could put into the style guide, that if this character speaks in your language, you can make sure that there are words. I mean, for what if he has to be punk or hipster or whatever, and
Yeah, probably.
because
probably.
Raúl would be fun in Dutch. Speaking Spanish, the old Spanish word, but in Spain, what do you do? So I think that's where, if you put in guidelines for whoever is translating and proofreading, that this is the way we're approaching this character and that character, it can
It's
be.
just for me, it's a kind of obvious. It's but like you're translating not the words but the meaning.
Yes.
So for me, it's like obvious, but probably
It is, but I mean,
sometimes worth
it isn't
putting in
written
the
down
obvious.
anywhere, is it? Well, we got a bit of guidelines about the
Written down in
characters.
there.
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
It's clear.
My work, because we're doing it kind of through English, maybe like say in Spanish, you will also use for hipstery guys, you would use like English words.
Yeah.
You did that. I think I remember you did that, and I didn't catch on that it was like a hipster guy, and I was like, why did you use so many English words here? Like, this might be, and then you were like, well, but
But
it
they
is a
might get
hipster guy.
lost in English, but then it would be nice if they reappeared in other language because it also works. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
True. So
Yes.
if we kind of carry that.
No, in such lines we usually leave comments like make sure this guy blah 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 does that and that.
Barbershop. Yeah, we have a traditional Russian word, barbershop.
No, first, I'm actually happy to see that there are a few proofs here of how we can prevent certain issues, from happening just with common sense, knowledge, and competence that we have here. The other thing is about, the outer translators, and I think the outer. Guidelines. No. I wouldn't like to have all these things for the simple reason. I tell you why. I mean, I think the outer translators, they should only change a couple of things. So typos and grammar, and bugs and inconsistencies with terminology. That's it. Don't touch anything else, guys. Check with that. That's your job. For a simple
You're
reason,
right.
the translators that I believe at least are doing these kind of translations, with little advance, and so on and so forth. They are not necessarily the most the most experienced. Sorry. Whereas the ones that actually are doing our reviews, I'm sure they are, because I've seen quite a few of my reviews, and I mean they were definitely spot on. When they were pointing out something, it wasn't just for the sake. They clearly put a thought behind it. So these kind of people do that. So that's it. I mean, I don't see any reason for giving guidelines on taking time, wasting time, going back and forth into documents and so on and so forth. I think the process can be very smooth and very efficient by simply having, the outer translators, proofreaders actually, doing that. If you see something clearly wrong from bugs, grammar, typos, fix it. Inconsistency in terminology, fix it. Anything else, it has already been decided by who has to decide, which is us. That's it.
That's a very good point, I think. Yeah, it's a very valid point. Yeah, because, I mean, it's... if it would probably be interesting if you would give the same text to a lot of either English or French or Spanish or Dutch people, they would all come up with their own version. As you said, when you work with your Russian team and they all have to produce English, you're fighting over, this is, well, not fighting, but, because you all have your own style, you're an individual, and so one person prefers this word or that expression. So, and it would be amazing if you just would do that. And I find when I do a lot of reviews with Dutch, so many people always feel that if they have to check something, they think they should find something. Otherwise they can't show that they've done something. So sometimes they just change things for the purpose of changing things. But Lorenzo, in that sense, is right, saying, okay, we're only going to say you can change, you check for spelling errors, grammar errors, typos, punctuation or whatever. Yeah, I think that's very good. So that
Every time you can leave a couple of typos for them.
yeah, to make them feel happy. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But I mean that means that the owner of the translation are the translators, in a way, who work hard indeed, and they, to.
No, we have the whole context of the game. We know the
Yes.
game well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's the person who can leave
Yes. They probably don't. No,
No, as much as we do.
no, absolutely.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point.
I also agree. It actually sounds like a solution, but I'm not sure about guidelines because you mentioned that we don't actually need to spend time on guidelines. But I guess it's not only for external translators; it is also good
For ourselves.
for ourselves. Yeah.
I was talking actually
Ah, okay. Please don't. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of like all this. We translate, then we edit, then we proofread process, because it is very difficult sometimes to say if editing was like, okay, editor edited something, but did it really make translation better or worse? And we never know. So we have these three steps, but I'm not sure. And obviously, sometimes they making things worse. So.
Is there any way that it comes back to us after they proofread?
Oh.
I know it's extra work.
It's not only extra work. Sometimes we just don't have time.
It's the time, yeah.
Sorry, Marina, it wasn't usually because as long as Dimitri was around, like, as far as I remember, okay, and I'm not even sure about that, I thought that basically anything that they would translate, Giancarlo would check it.
Yeah.
And anything he would translate, I would check it. So
Yeah.
translate.
That's what we do. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so.
Actually, it's for Italian. You usually do everything, but there was some extra text that I sent to the agency for translation because you already had a lot on your plate. So.
But what if you do if there's a lot on our plate? You can have the first proofreading done by external, and then the proofreading internal.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Maybe, because that shouldn't take as much time.
Well, what is the need of the second proofreading? I just asked.
No, I mean, if I send something for translation to them, for example.
All you need to do is see what they changed, and if that's okay.
No, but if they the translation originally is done by externals, right?
Yeah.
So you guys can have a look and say.
That doesn't really happen, does it? Not much. Well,
Like super rarely.
Yeah, what used to happen more for our team?
It happens sometimes when some of you are on vacation or.
Yeah, but then we could proofread what they did.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Silence. Yeah.
Yeah, but even if they proofread something, you know how you can put in a memo queue just to see what has been changed? That doesn't take a lot of time to check.
Actually, I guess Esat, I've seen that you're always checking what.
Yeah, I do because most of the time they do unnecessary changes.
I check sometimes just to learn, to see what mistakes.
They just change the way of saying the same thing.
Transcreation.
Yeah.
Unsuccessful.
Unsuccessful transcreation.
Yeah, but then it would go back to the original source text, probably. You were very transcreative, and then it goes back to what it was, probably.
So, but these, as far as I understand, sorry for double checking, if we communicate with them, telling them, okay, just change this kind of things and these kind of things, shouldn't happen anymore, right? So,
Should be okay, but can you guys help me to gather some examples when they made unnecessary changes? Because I don't like to give them. It's not the best idea to give them a feedback like, okay, you usually change our translation and make it worse. We don't have any proofs, but please don't do this anymore.
That works for agencies, and if someone comes back to me saying, we're not happy, I want samples.
Yeah.
Why are you criticizing our work? So yeah.
okay. But it doesn't mean to be anything. I mean, it's just a matter of the internal process, how it works. So it can be framed in a sense that we completely trust our internal translation because they have a total knowledge of the game, so we would like you only to do this job. That's it, because we realize that you might not have the knowledge and the expertise to actually check.
If you guys worked with translation agencies, you understand that they can claim, they can say to me that they have a dedicated team of translators for our project, but I'm 100% sure that sometimes they just send our text to some random person because I worked for an agency and that's what I did sometimes.
I think that because you know how the journalists
Yeah, of course. There's a big turnover there. So.
But you could maybe say to them, we had a conference and we have been discussing all sorts of things. And from now on, we're going to be more creative about how to approach our texts. And so if the translators have produced texts that are maybe slightly different from the, not as literal as in the source text, there's no need to change it back because we are going to have this new approach. Saying maybe in a nice way that...
Maybe they can actually, if they're not sure about something, maybe they can, like get back with a comment or something like this. But
we are going back to the original issue, honestly.
Yeah,
You pay them, you tell them what to do. I know the story. You tell them in a polite way, you tell them in a diplomatic way, but we pay them. They don't want to lose the client. I'm sure they'll be more than fine.
no, I mean, sometimes it's like, if they see something and it seems suspicious, why it's a bad idea to report? I mean,
not at all, but the problem, if it's something, again, it's a typo or it's something related to a bias and consistency, of course, that's what, in my opinion, of course, I share an opinion, might be wrong, might be right, I don't know, but that's what they should do, so, that's their job, but they should completely cut any transcreation, in the part, because that's should be done by us for the model that PlayRix seems to have now. If you want to change the model, fine. But I think in this model, the most effective way should be like bugs, typos.
Yeah. I actually agree because I guess sometimes they just don't have enough context, and you discuss a lot of things internally.
And of course, they can come up with suggestions, because sometimes they have a better suggestion. It's possible. But then suggest it.
No?
No, why not?
Suggest and not change it.
Somebody have no say.
It sounds like they have just too much trust. I can talk loud.
This is mostly for the
for agencies, usually you basically get a text and you don't know where it's from, and then you have no way of actually contacting people. So when I was editing translations, even if I had a question like what does this mean, I would send it back to the person who sent me the task, and they just would never get back to you. So I think even getting feedback from them is kind of a hopeless idea.
It takes time, and of course they want to stay on their side.
Just limit their responsibility, basically.
Sometimes they just say, provide your best guess.
For agencies, when I worked for agencies, normally if you're translating, every time you get a text from a particular game, you get a file with different tabs for each language, and each language will have guidelines. We use these, for instance, like the other day that I saw that while Salome had been on holidays, I think, so external translators, and they used the wrong quotation marks. So that's something that then I realized, well, how were they supposed to know what quotation marks to use, to be honest? So that would be something just to have like a set of guidelines,
If you, for instance, if you use all those exclamation marks, little things that is normal in one language, just gets, I find all these exclamation marks, it just, at some stage, they just say, oh, God. So, but because I'm only just starting, I just stick to all these exclamation marks and but I mean, that's something you can just put that in the style guide and say, well, for our language, we just don't do it, or, but there was an example, for instance, in Township, where there was this election to be a mayor. And there were all these taglines, and it was complicated in the beginning because I had to do this, and you had a very limited amount of characters. And the sentence in English was broken up often in 2 or in 3s or in 4s, I can't really remember. But because they were short, it didn't work in Dutch, so I had to mix them up. And once I got the concept of what the end result had to be, I thought, okay, it works if I just put this sentence first and then the other sentence later, or I use township first and then not mention it later. I was mixing it because I had the character restrictions. Now that would be part of transcreation. So if you make clear maybe from the beginning that all these changes were made because of the process of the character limitation, and you still had to get the message across, then it might not be changed. You know, because sometimes even the order of certain sentences, even in memo queues sometimes, I just mix them. Because it doesn't work otherwise. You know, you have your character restrictions, okay, I'll put that first and then I'll get it in later. So that's also part of the transcreation, but it's due to the character limitations that you suddenly have to be creative. You're forced even to be creative because you have to find a solution. It is obvious. No, but I mean, it is. It's not like if an external proofreader would follow and say, oh, well, this sentence should be, oh, where is that sentence gone? You know, it's just three rows down or whatever. But it's still there. Iset has
bringing up the same topic again, but are we at least able to leave comments for agency guys in memo queue? I mean,
It's possible, but they
I'm
don't
not
seem
sure
to
that
read
they
them.
will actually read them.
They don't.
I guess.
I mean, instead of guidelines and making notes for them, we can just leave comments.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, you can do that. I think what we'll do is we'll have a call. I probably have a call with an agency manager, and we discuss this problem because maybe.
That's good. Maybe they already have something with a different client.
Yeah. I mean, at least this issue definitely should be addressed because I agree with Lorenzo. They shouldn't be responsible for changing like important things like
Pretty sure they wouldn't
terms.
have any problem. It's just really a matter of communication. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
what we would like them to do.
I doubt that they will tell me no to edit everything. Don't
Just
send
giving
us your
them a set of
money.
rules.
We don't want your money.
Yeah.
So,
if it's okay, I'm going to sit down.
Yeah.
Thanks.